Welcome. In today's podcast, the politics teacher and his students talk about the UK and our place in the world. I'm Ian Hollingsworth, and I'm joined today by Piara Power, Carter Fenwick, and Leah Med. The UK has struggled, hasn't it, really, with its identity? We seem to have a bit of an identity crisis. Exactly what are we? People still hark back to the British Empire, some people anyway, which has long gone. We've had this long troubled relationship with Europe. We've got the so-called special relationship with America, but how special is it really? So exactly where is the UK now in the world? I want us to give that some thought, and I'll just kick this one out to you guys. Would you say that the UK is in decline, long-term decline, or not?
From what?
Yeah.
Decline from what?
Decline from, I suppose,
From your heyday,
its
from the
its
70s.
its view of itself as being a big, great, significant power that was had a strong reputation around the world for what it had achieved and what it stood for. Maybe that never existed. Maybe that was a myth.
It
How do you
existed.
see Britain?
I personally see it as a modern, dynamic place which has a lot to learn from the world, but a lot to give the world as well. I still think that. I mean, yeah, we don't have an empire anymore, thank God. We don't um, rate ourselves as highly. Maybe that's why this sense of decline that you're characterizing doesn't exist for most of us. It never has existed, really. It's been a bit of an illusion, really. When we had the empire, when this country had the empire, of which I was a subject once upon a time, or our family were, you could talk about greatness and military greatness and dominance and power. And as the Americans have reminded us recently, real power is significant. But otherwise, I see it as quite interesting and forward thinking. Now, I don't think about that characterization of the 50s, of UK in the 50s. I mean, I don't really hear people talking about that sort of stuff, actually. Do you? I mean, it's mostly very old people and Daily Telegraph readers who have that kind of world view.
Wouldn't know them.
Or
You,
you, the
you still
Mirrors.
get the jingoistic stuff, don't you? Rule Britannia, last night the proms, and some. I guess it's this kind of delusion of grandeur, maybe. What about you, Leah? What's your thoughts
I mean,
on
it
Britain?
is hard to like define what has made the UK decline or how it has declined, but I'd say it has. I'd say we're less respected by the general world now. I'd say, I mean, our finances aren't as good as they used to be. Austerity measures has made the cost of living really high for people. I don't think Britain is in a good place at the moment. And I think you can definitely see that as well with the amount of like American influence we've got. If we talk about being post-colonial, the same way that we kind of injected Britishisms into the world with force, I feel that um, now it feels like we're just being Americanized a lot. I mean, you look on Twitter on X, you've got Elon Musk saying that um, the UK is turning into, Islam and such, which is ridiculous. But then it's the UK seems to be adopting the sort of ideals that America has. You see a lot of the right being persuaded by them to. I mean, I'm not saying that anti-immigrant rhetoric isn't something that Britain has done on its own, because it definitely has. But I mean, you look at, say, like McDonald's and Starbucks over your local cafe. I feel like a lot of Britishness has gone, and you know, I think Britain's definitely on the decline in that sense. I still love. I think the people aren't. I think the people are amazing, and I love working class culture. I love the middle class culture. I love the people of Britain. But as a country, as a government, I think it's just kind of gone to worse.
Oh dear. How do you see it, Carter? What's your thoughts?
I think I mean, yeah, I'd agree it's declined. I mean, what can I add? I think that our current leadership has shown itself to be very weak on a domestic and an international scale. Keir Starmer's a melt, to put it nicely, who U-turns on every second policy. Granted, that's because every second of his policies is the "I hate you and I want you to die" bill. But
We're talking about the world as the world sees us,
sorry, I mentioned Keir
not
Starmer and
as
clicked the
Carter
switch in
sees
there.
the world.
Yeah,
The Sir Keir Starmer rant
look, we have a weak
is a
leader,
common
so the
feature.
world.
It didn't take long this time.
Look, we have a weak leader, so the world will see us as weak. Our economy's in the dump, and we have very little actual influence over the world anymore. So we might influence Australia still, maybe. We're
Yeah.
out of the EU, so we don't have a say in what they do anymore.
Mm.
We're kind of just uh, we've got our relationship with Trump, which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
I'm
I
sure
think
we
this is
will.
interesting, Ian, because you got the left and the right on this pod kind of
I'm a
agreeing that we're in
centrist.
decline. Sorry,
Yeah,
Carter, I know you don't want to be seen as the right, but the centre right, whatever.
and
Yeah,
I don't quite see it that way. Whether I'm an optimist or a bit naive, but
Centrist.
all right, centrist. I think that the UK is in almost a kind of transition. Really, I think the problem that we have is we don't really know where we are. I do think that, like you said at the start, that at our best we're outwardly looking and have got a lot to offer from a cultural angle, and that maybe the best is yet to come. I don't think we were ever this great power, and it was based on some pretty horrible things. But I think that there's certainly scope for the UK to recapture some of those elements.
It's a different type of um, shaping, isn't it? A different. It's not obviously glorious, right? We're not riding the waves with a huge navy and dominating people. Um, and the decline, the economic decline, is in keeping with the economic decline of other European countries, of most economies around the world, apart from those that are obviously rising: China, India, the BRICS, and of course the US. But
Yeah,
we're not
so
exceptional in terms of
no,
our
so it just
economic.
reflects really the way that the world is, rather than
Yeah.
any national failings.
But can I share something that someone in the Indian High Commission said to me recently when I was at a meeting there, and then something else that occurred to me and that was that the guy said, look, he was just reflecting on his time in the UK because he's leaving in March, going back to New Delhi for a new posting, and he was talking about how the country suffers economically because it doesn't have the colonies to draw on anymore, right? And I must admit, I sat there and I thought, yeah, I know that argument, and I know what built this country, and I hope we'll get a chance to explore that. But at the same time, that was a long time ago. And then I realized, actually, I think it was maybe through AFCON, the African Cup of Nations, which is on at the moment, that Nigeria only got independence from the UK in 1972, I think it was. So
Yeah,
until
one of the last ones, wasn't
1972, we were benefiting probably from the exploration of oil markets in Nigeria, the resources and
it?
everything else that this huge country in West Africa has got to offer. So he's got a point, that we still have been, until very recently, living off the resources that our colonies had given us historically.
And that's a good opening to first thing really to think about the legacy of the empire. How significant do you think that was?
Well, the legacy of the British Empire as the biggest empire or at least I think it's the biggest empire in human history.
I think the
There might be
Romans
some
might have outdone it, but it's pretty
ah
close.
too far back for me to bother. But we had a pretty big
Ian
empire. We had our
remembers
place
it.
in the sun. There, there is an obvious legacy from that. I mean, I think still most of the world speaks English, yeah, I think English is the most common second language as well, I believe, for people to have. You know, most of the Western world, it deals in English, which, that is because most of the Western world at one point was owned by the English during the heyday of the Empire. But that doesn't really concern what I want to talk about now. I like to sort of talk about the ongoing debates about the British Empire. Was Alexa cancel? Sorry, she's a sleeper agent. Yeah, right. I want to talk about the ongoing debates of the British Empire. Right,
We have an
move on.
infiltrator.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, fifth member of the podcast. But yeah, we've got the
Spy.
debate. Was it more harmful or was it more beneficial? I mean, you know, in the benefits front, it led to an increase in global trade, uh, and because we had the empire, we were able to industrialize so rapidly throughout I believe, the 19th century, because we had such access to resources the world over, like metals, oil, cotton and such, because of the empire. I hope we could then bring that home and process it in our factories. That was a large factor behind how the UK could become so industrialized so quickly in that course of time.
What would be? I get that we became first industrial nation, and the empire played a massive part in that. What was the downside then for you,
I mean, the
Carter?
downside is there was obvious murder and exploitation of indigenous peoples. There was the sort of, I don't know actually.
Well,
What we got? What have I got in my notes here? We got
that's a
economic
start. Well,
exploitation. We got loss of land rights and cultural identity for the colonized people. We've got violence and repression was used to maintain control. All that sort of
Carter,
stuff.
as a young person, how do you reflect on the empire, good or bad? What's your take?
Neutral.
You're neutral. Really?
Neutral?
Yeah, neutral. No, we did I say we. The British Empire did a lot of bad things, yeah, but without it, the world wouldn't be as developed as it is now. We wouldn't be here on this podcast right now, out talking about it. And
Well, hang on
we
a
can't
minute.
forget.
There's plenty of countries that didn't have empires. They still do podcasts. And
No,
actually, you're kind of making this case for the British Empire doing the world, giving benefits to the world. Really, it just industrialized our economy and gave us free labor.
yeah, we industrialized. That
Yeah,
led
but
to
it wasn't.
other nations industrializing, and the industrialization of the nations that we were under, like America, so on.
I'm going to bring Leah in because she's dying. I can see almost like palpitating to get
I'm
in
not
here.
done yet. I got one more thing.
No,
One
no,
more thing.
go on, one more thing, and then we'll bring in Leah.
We also can't forget that because the British Empire was a large force behind stopping the global slave trade. Through figures like William Wilberforce. Yeah, it is a trade that we benefited from ourselves, but we put a stop to it partially.
You invented it. You
Did
industrialized
I?
Started. We
it.
started it.
Yeah, well, we stopped it.
No, you didn't stop
Judge a
it.
man not
That's a
by his slavery
fallacy.
past, but
You
by
didn't
his
stop
slavery
it.
future.
You
Oh
didn't
wow,
stop
look
it.
at me fixing this issue that I created. Look, aren't I
Thanks,
good? Be
Sabrina.
grateful,
Good, Sabrina.
Come
guys.
on then,
That's
Leah.
incredible.
Honestly,
Yeah, go on.
Carter, like that
The
is.
Whatever your
platform is
sources
yours.
are, I don't know what. Jeez.
The platform is yours.
I don't think I've ever actually spoken to someone that has that viewpoint, Kyle. It's so like it's genuinely like baffled me. I mean, he like when we invaded countries, we didn't just steal their resources, we stole their ideas as well. A lot of the advancements from medicine came from the Middle East. A lot of ideas and things that we created were actually just the product of countries that we colonized. It's so it's I forget the word, but
You're
Um,
Actually,
lost for words, aren't you?
Breathtaking.
I know
That's
I am. Like
staggered.
I'm genuinely, this has rattled me.
It's it's
It's
I'm so
proper.
arrogant. It's
removed from it.
so
I don't really.
arrogant to think that the world wouldn't be in the place it is if we didn't go around colonizing and genociding native peoples. They would have very much advanced on their own. You know, it wasn't because we came and killed a load of people and stole things from them that the world is the way it is. In fact, I bet you could even argue the world would be a better place if we didn't kill a load of people.
Yeah, it would have developed differently. I mean, India and China were the two biggest economies in the world before the British colonized India,
Yeah.
and then attacked China or the Chinese Empire. I mean, incredible, really. I mean, I think the science and the academic work on the colonies and empire and slavery tells us definitively that it was to extract free labor, which then fed the industrialization of this country, which gave, because of the resources that are available, what today Trump is trying to do in Greenland, nick its minerals, what the Chinese have been doing in Africa, trading on their minerals. That's what the British did many, many years ago, but with a lot more destruction,
A power
impoverished
grab,
half the world and
a power
stole it.
grab, really.
I mean, I think we could be pretty clear. Unless we're revisionist historians, Niall Ferguson and people like that, then I have to be. I think we should have clarity of thought on what the empire and what the colonial focus of this country did.
I'm gonna move us on, guys,
Yeah, I
because
think this
I'd
has
like
answered the question of how the British Empire is seen by people today.
it seen differently.
Yeah.
Let's think about Europe, which has been, uh, I say, a thorn in our side. I think it's probably the other way around. UK a thorn in Europe's side. How do we see the impact of our troubled relationship with Europe, and obviously most recently, 10 years now since we decided to leave the EU?
I mean, yeah, we joined the EU in 73, had the referendum in 2016, and then finally left in 2020. Um, I'm gonna go into like the reasons why we left the EU, or the reasons Team Leave said we should leave the EU. Many of them felt that the EU had way too much influence over British laws. You know, the sentiment was that UK law should be made by British MPs, not made in Brussels. As always, as is often the case with the right, there was a lot of anti-immigrant immigration sentiment. You know, people felt that there was way too many EU nationals coming here, and um, and obviously we couldn't deny them entry without breaking EU rules. Um, you know, since the EU, I'd say the country's just overall been in decline. It's not been good for us at all, really. Trading with Europe has become harder, less competitive, it's more expensive and slower. Many sources say that the growth of the economy is lower than it otherwise would have been. You know, investment took a huge hit due to uncertainty, and we just underperformed, really. We've got higher food prices, higher import costs. Um, you know, as a positive, I guess one thing that Remain was right, Leave, sorry, was right about was that you know, the EU immigration did drop sharply. You know, we did get a lot of less EU nationals in the country. However, didn't actually affect the number of immigration as a whole. You know, we just had more non-EU immigrants. Um, we, you know, industries took a big hit from that. Agriculture, hospitality, farming industry. It's just I can't really. I did look for a while to see if I could find any positives of Brexit. Maybe there's
The
sort of
long
like,
term, the Brexiteers, sorry to interrupt, but
yeah,
the Brexiteers would say that this is a long term development.
yeah. But
That
even
in
if
the short
even
term, there was going to be a hit, and in the
we
long
still
term, I
haven't hit
don't
our
know when
short
that
term
will
targets
be.
though. Like even so, even if it does work better in the long term, I mean, it still hasn't done anything before I do. You know, I feel like a big reason we wanted to leave was to decrease immigration, and it hasn't decreased immigration whatsoever. It's actually um worsened it really. Um, you know, I mean, on the plus side, I guess we do set our own trade policy, but when we're trading with the EU, we have to comply with their rules anyways. So I don't really know what that's done for us. You know, it's like it feels like we've gone from a position of being, you know, influencing the rules that we have to comply with to just having to follow them. Um, the economy suffered.
Lost the benefits, but still got the costs, kind
Yeah,
of.
exactly, exactly. I mean, we can't travel for studying as easily. Obviously, there is a new scheme coming in, but could have just stayed in the EU for that. Um, you can't work abroad as easily. You, you know,
Mm.
obviously, you know, we never adopted the euro. We never complied with the Schengen scheme. So there was a lot of tension, and I don't feel like Britain ever did fully integrate itself with the EU. But I can tell you for a fact that it's worse off now than it was post Brexit.
Well, anybody else chip in here? What's our thoughts about the impact of Brexit and our relationship with Europe on how we are as a country?
I mean, I think there's no question, is there, that economically we have shot ourselves in the foot. No question about that. If you total up all of the new trade deals, they don't come close to the cash injection that we were getting from the EU, even with our contributions. I was talking to someone earlier this week on Monday about the big areas of the UK that benefited from EU funding, development funding, infrastructure funding, Cornwall, Wales, and the northeast and parts of the northwest of this country, areas that really needed it. And we've
Oh,
seen
where we are,
since.
Humberside had significant EU funding.
Right, and there's no replacement for that. The government hasn't been able to replace that. It just isn't going to be able to. So that's why I think there's a kind of a tacit recognition from the majority of the people in this country now that we're going to have to make some sort of arrangement. It's going to be difficult to go back in because they may not accept us back in. But somehow we need to increase our trade with Europe, get back inside on the inside track where we can. The freedom that we get from an independent trade deal with Australia, with its marginal benefits to us, very marginal, it's just not worth it, right? Same with India, same with the US. It just isn't worth it at all. It's an absolute disaster. There's no, I don't think there's any other way of characterizing it.
Mm. Yeah,
No.
genuinely, it's been overall negative. It's like, as Ian was saying, you know, we got a lot of EU investment. Like on my walks across the coastline, I see like the EU signs all the time, and I just get sad because I think of, like, you know, what we used to have, and we just don't have that anymore.
I
It's
mean, I don't
just,
know. Oh, sorry.
you know, it just feels like we've shot ourselves in the foot.
I don't know what local fishermen say. That there was a sense in which fishermen got a bad deal from the EU and that sovereignty was going to give them back control of their waters and so on. I haven't heard too much about that in terms of any benefits since it happened, and I think the view has changed somewhat on that.
International trade agreements are complicated, aren't they? So you
Yeah.
may have had to share your fish with France in the North Sea, but then now there's no sharing, and the borders and the fishing routes that are put in place are probably equally restrictive. I doubt if they benefited at all, to be honest. And
No, sure.
let's face it, we don't do anything for a marginal industry like fishing, where fish are disappearing. Young people don't want to go into to become fishermen. It's too difficult. So it's not. It
One,
was
one of
not the
our
reason
one of our
to do.
politics students did weirdly left the course to
Oh
become.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I saw him last week. He's doing all right.
Okay. Do you think, Piara, that our so-called special relationship with America has played a part in this and moving us on to our relationship with America? We seem to have had a feet in two camps almost, one in Europe, one with the USA. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't think there's any getting away from the fact that the UK is geographically closer to Europe. Most of the world see us, yes, as the UK with a distinct identity, but as European. And that's what we are. We've resisted that for so long. It's part of that sort of arrogance I think the British have, that we're not part of continental Europe and we're not like them. Well, we should learn to be more like them because many of them are doing much better than we are. And the US was partly invested in us. The special relationship was partly about the fact that we were an access into the EU, which is the second biggest trading bloc in the world, right? And if you put together, if you lump the UK in, an economy that comes close to the size of the US economy, and Obama was very clear there won't be a trade deal. Biden didn't give us a trade deal. So far, Trump is not giving us a trade deal. There's an agreement of some kind, a loose agreement, and the government seems to be making waves. I've seen some things on from the government pushing British companies to learn how to trade in the US and to be understand the regulatory requirements. But it's not tangible. It's not bringing us the returns that we've missed out on. And in general terms, the special relationship really has been about two countries that share a language, two countries. One was previously the colonizer of part of the other side. So Carter and his mates are involved in the Boston Tea Party. Could talk about that. And actually, the reality is that we have been subservient, and part of the motivation for working with the US has been for military protection. Let's face it. So we've joined some of their excursions, as many other Europeans have, in the Middle East, for example. All of it very damaging to the Middle East, very damaging to us. The cost of financially of the lives impacted has been awful. And now we have the America First movement, and MAGA really doesn't want to be allied with the UK. So, opportunistically, if they want us to share in a military operation or join a military operation, they might ask us. But they see, under the way they see the world, the spheres of influence, as we're part of Europe and not part of North America. We don't have anything to do with Venezuela and the actions there, or what actions they might take with Cuba or Colombia or anywhere else, or even Greenland. We are now firmly on the other side. And I think it's time we realize that, because they do. They're very clear about this so-called special relationship.
That's a bit
It's
of a
true
wake
that we've had less tariffs than a lot of other countries. I think, what are we, up 15%, and the EU is at 20% tariffs. It's a marginal issue, doesn't really impact us too much. Keir Starmer's calls are probably not being taken with any more frequency than Macron's or
no.
Ursula von der Leyen's from the EU.
So it's a bit of a myth, really.
It's become a myth. I think historically, yeah, Joe Biden, for example, was, very keen on his Irish heritage. And Ireland is a separate country in the EU, but that connected him to us in the UK. But no, and Trump's parentage, his mother was from Scotland, right? So there is some kind of intangible emotional connection there with many Americans, but they're not interested really.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Any thoughts? Anybody else
I
before we
mean,
round
just
off
to add
today?
on to that, to add on to the fact that we're not as good friends anymore, I don't know if you've seen, but the UK has sent one soldier to Greenland.
Oh, that's
One.
Is
big
that
number.
right?
I know.
Oh,
A whole soldier. Yeah, so don't worry. Trump comes in, we've got this. With one
yeah.
guy.
That's going to have a big impact, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who they send. If they send Ronnie Pickering, probably do a good job.
Ronnie
Imagine that one
Pickering.
bloke, though. That's
Ronnie
also, he
Pickering
doesn't
will
even have anyone to
save
speak to.
Greenland.
The,
I'm
the,
going to
Yeah.
round us off, guys. I want us to give us a Freddo moment of the week. Do we have a Freddo moment of the week?
Um, I must admit, I've spent a lot of this week inside, cooped up writing assignments. However, I will
Me
say,
too.
yeah. However, I will say, I got hit with inflation again last night. It was horrible. I was at the bar, and usually I get a £5 round. It's a very nice name. It rolls off the tongue,
£5
Um,
round.
£5 round, you get a single spirit, a bottle of EK, and a shot, and it's magical. It's a £6 round now. It doesn't roll off the tongue as nicely, and I was very upset to find, honestly.
hardly in the spirit of the Freddo, is it though? It's like the alcoholic Freddo kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Students, Freddo.
Freddo's night out.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Well,
Well, on that note, thank you. Enjoyed it. We have been the politics teacher and his students talking about the UK and the position the UK thinks it has in the world. The jury's out on that one, isn't it? Thanks a lot. Look forward to the next podcast.
Leah, thanks for not mentioning the Jack Palance mess up from last time.
Sorry. Yeah, no.
No, I'm glad you didn't.
I was distracted. I had to hold my hat hostage because halfway through talking, it started ripping apart a box.